Good afternoon or good morning or good evening, wherever you are, everybody. We're going to give everybody just a couple more minutes or maybe a minute to log on, but we appreciate you joining us today, and we'll be back with you shortly. Thanks.
Looks like we lost. Is Jennifer here?
I think she just came back.
I just came back on.
Perfect.
Hey, Casey. Hey, Rachel. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Hold
Hi,
on.
guys.
I feel like we need some hold music to start.
Is everybody
Noted.
still there?
Noted.
Okay.
You're not singing.
Let me
Right.
preface this now by stating that I am in Chester County and we just got about a foot of snow and it's sleeting like crazy outside. So if this happens again, I'll apologize. And Ben, you pick up where I fell off and then I'll jump back on.
You got it.
You just run with it. So thanks again for joining us. It's our second Lunch and Learn. And it's called Pivoting to Virtual, Maximizing the Value of Your Signature Event. You just keep going with it. So with that being said, we're going to introduce our experts. Today, some brief housekeeping. For those of you who haven't joined us before, on the right side is your control panel. That's where you can put in any of your chats, which I know some of you are already doing. That's also where you can get any polls or takeaways that we're going to be offering throughout the session, and also reply to any quizzes that we may or may not have, but we probably have a couple hidden in there. So anything you need to do can go in the chat channel, and as well as any downloads you'll see come up there. Okay, and if you have any questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat channel as well, and we'll be sure to address them. Now we'll go into today's panel of experts. So today on the call, you have Ben Ladani, who's the CEO and founder of Creative MMS. You have Ed Siders, who's the Director of Business Development at 2020 Visual Media. Ed, a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So thanks so much for joining us today. We're very excited to discuss this very timely topic of virtual events for your organization. And throughout the last year, we've very much pivoted to help most all of our clients figure out exactly how to deal with the changing environment due to COVID and just everything else that seems to be going on in the world right now. So we've helped a lot of our clients to make that pivot to virtual events and be able to celebrate their employees, or even board members or different organizations that are, part of a member organization. So we've really taken the time to get to know our clients even on a much better level and take their events to the next level when it comes to them being virtual rather than live and in person. So I'm very excited to be here today to discuss a lot of what we've done and what we consult our clients on over the last year, and how we see it progressing, in the future.
Great. And we also have Jessica McGarvey. She is with Creative MMS as our business development manager, but she's got a lot of experience in the event industry. So Jess, why don't you give a little brief synopsis of your experience?
Yes, thank you. So the first half of my life I spent producing and managing and planning large-scale events. So when COVID hit, it was definitely very scary. Within a week, all of our events canceled. So definitely a challenge to figure out how to sort of pivot your mindset. What things are you no longer thinking about? A venue, food and beverage, and then what things do you have to start thinking about? Which is, wow, how do we produce an event and give the same experience when everybody's sitting behind a computer screen? So really excited to talk with everyone today, especially Ed and the rest of the team. So
Great. Thanks, Jess. All right. Before we get started, if there's anything in specific that you're hoping to learn more about today, please put it in the chat channel. We can definitely make sure that we focus on that as we go through our discussion. But if you have anything right off the bat you want to find out more about, we'll be sure to address it. And otherwise, again, ask any questions as you go along. But we do have a poll that we want to start off with. So our poll has to do with what is your biggest challenge in hosting a large-scale virtual event? So, as we all know, we're all going virtual. We're doing, webinars, podcasts, but we're also doing, a lot of large-scale events. It could be, internal. It could be client-facing. It could be fundraising. It could be a variety of things that are out there. And it's a little difficult sometimes to replicate that in-person event. So what do you think it is? And we're finding out. And it looks like a lot of people do feel that it is replicating that in-person experience, because it is tough when you're doing it online versus, face-to-face. But we'll keep the poll open for a little while. Feel free to answer, and we'll keep going along. All right. Kicking it off with Jess. Jess going to talk a little bit more about planning with us.
Yes. So, and I think me and Ed are both able to talk about this. In the world of live event planning, I'm sure some of you have heard that proper planning prevents poor performance. And it's really the same when you're going to be planning your virtual event. So first things first, as with any event, live or virtual, identify your goals and the target audience. What story are you trying to tell, and who needs to see and hear that story? So when it comes to the mindset and the pivot, I think a few things to think about with your target audience here is, who are they? Is it internal? Are you doing an internal, conference for your employees? Is it a fundraiser? Maybe do you have to think about tech savvy or not so tech savvy older donors? So really kind of diving into who the audience is, and then how you can best format the rest of your content and the tech that's going to go around your virtual event.
And I think the next portion of that is really determining what is the format that you want your virtual event to take. There are so many different ways of doing it. You can have a fully pre-recorded event. You could have a fully live event. You can have a hybrid mix of the two, which, there's pros and cons to each. As Jess had said, determining the audience and who needs to hear what message, I think certainly helps understand what format you want this to take. There's a lot of things to consider. Do you want this to be something that is on the level of a annual gala that is, meant to bring in millions of dollars for your organization? Or is it something a little bit more less formal that is more of a webinar or an internal meeting, like Jess had alluded to? So those are all different things that you have to think about in terms of how is the event going to actually take shape and what format you want it to be in. You also want to plan your content from start to finish. Understand, how are you opening? How are you segueing from person to person? I'll talk a little bit about this in the production aspect of slide of it, of this presentation, but understanding exactly how it flows will help, because again, you don't want to create a program that's 30, 60, 90 minutes, even 120 minutes in some cases long, that doesn't seem to flow and that doesn't keep people engaged. So those are all things that you want to think about ahead of time to get ready.
And in that, following that is once you've sort of mapped out your content and you figure out your format based on, the audience and the goals. This has been a shift for everyone, not just the planners and the marketers of these events, but for the attendees as well. So preparing the attendees for a virtual experience is super important, whether it's an internal conference or, an external trade show or something. Does your audience need to download something special for this program? Or is it a gala fundraiser, where normally your guests would be, having networking during a cocktail hour and sort of floating around a room? How can you maybe send out cocktail mixers or send pre-prepared boxes of food so they can still have, the dinner that they would have had at your signature event last year? And a know before you go. So preparing the attendees for what to expect so that there's no surprises, and they can really use the time wisely.
And just to jump in here for a second, just to piggyback on that, if you're using a bidding platform for certain fundraisers where you have to have your phone nearby and you're actively bidding while you're also watching live, that's important to understand exactly how that works ahead of time. Ask people to be familiar with it ahead of time. That will make a big difference. Within our company and an organization that we belong to, we've done a lot of like virtual cooking classes, and ahead of time they actually send a list of all of the things that you need to have prepped and ready to go, so that way you can keep up with the program as it goes, so it doesn't end up being a 4-hour cooking demonstration. One last note, as Jess had alluded to about sending food, if you have a venue that you had already booked, sometimes you're locked in for a couple years. Talk with the venue, understand if there are ways that you can turn all of that into something that's boxed that can be sent. There's also a lot of great catering options here in Philadelphia. There's a place called 12th Street Catering that we work with to be able to send out food before an event. So that way, again, people can enjoy the event. Enjoy the food while they are socializing and taking in the experience.
Great, thanks, Ed.
Time for a
pop quiz. This was always my worst part of high school, or really any school. So.
In the spirit of know before you go and maybe sending out gift bags, we have an opportunity for a prize here. So, what percentage did virtual events increase worldwide since COVID-19 was announced? And this is Price of Right rules, so any guesses that come closest without going over will win a $10 Amazon gift card. So I would say don't spend it all in one place, but you will be spending it in Amazon. Maybe not on all the same things, but.
And throw your answers in the chat, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, so we see some answers coming in now. You're going to be amazed at what the answer is. I can tell you that much, because when I saw it, I was mind blown.
Okay.
All right. We're getting there.
Mm-hmm.
We'll give another like 15 seconds. And then we'll go back through this and we'll get it going. But right now, I think I see who's closest.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right. Timing is up.
And the answer,
go ahead,
Jennifer.
Go, Jess.
The virtual events were up 1,000% since COVID-19. So in just about a year. So
it looks like Karen Cohen is our winner, correct?
Yep.
With 250. Awesome. Yeah, 250%.
So congratulations to you, Karen. We'll be sure to get you that gift card after this is over. It might be the beginning of next week, though, but we will definitely get it to you, I promise. Okay. All right. So thanks for participating. We're going to pass it along to Ben now.
Thank you. Yeah. And so in the polls, I mean, one of the, I guess the second answer here in terms of the challenge was promoting and getting people to register. And so we should talk about that a little bit. First, beforehand, I want to kind of throw a question out there, post your answer in the comments here. But what's been your most successful way of reaching your audience to get them to register for a virtual event thus far? Just feel free to throw it in the comments as we're talking, and we'll come back and discuss that as well. So some thoughts to share, right? The first thing you want to think about, Jess mentioned this, but you're planning an event, you're planning it for a certain audience. You have to know that audience. You have to think about where are they, when are they in the journey of them finding out about your event, as well as going through registering for the event and considering that as a devotion of their time. So some thoughts to think about here. As marketers, we're all competing for people's attention, right? You're asking for their biggest asset, which is their time, to come to an event. And not only that, but right now they're inundated with Zoom calls and conferences, and Zoom fatigue is a real thing, right? So you have to really be thinking about what do I need to tell my audience in promoting that is going to make my event stand out for them. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll talk a little bit about where to reach them and how to reach them. So you think about who that audience is, where they are, why your event's going to be valuable, and then, kind of take it from the other angle of you being an attendee at an event, and think about like the best event that you ever went to. What happened before the event leading up to it that made you excited about it, that made you interested in it if you didn't know about it before you actually signed up for it? What did you need to see? And I think about these things in terms of two key points. One of them is trigger moments, which are the things that prompt somebody to decide to go to an event. And the other thing is friction. So once I have a trigger moment, let's just say that, for example, in our company, we have every employee put in for what they want to learn this quarter, and they choose an event if they want to learn it that way, or a learning management system they want to learn from, or whatever it is. But that's a trigger moment in our organization for them to go look for what they want to go to. So those trigger moments are what you're trying to tap into to know that you want to promote to those people at that time. There might be other ones, like a trigger moment might be getting approval for the cost of the event from their boss or somebody else. So you got to think about that in terms of the marketing and the campaigns that you're promoting across. Friction, being that second point, is removing that friction. So things like, if they have to pay for it, discuss the value and the return on investment for the event, because their boss is going to ask them that question. Well, what do you seek to get out of this? So we've even done things like downloadable PDFs for people to bring into their boss and say, here's the event I want to go to, here's what I hope to get out of it. And don't miss the difference between people that don't know about you that might be coming to the event and people that do know about you, or that you've already captured to the website, let's say, and are able to communicate back to them and promote to them that they already know about it. Your captive audience is the ones that you want to try and convert, where you may have to create awareness with an audience that doesn't know you. And to Jess's point, these may be internal events for you as well, and so you have a fully captive audience. There's better ways to reach them, I think, than some of the others that create awareness. So let's talk about that a little bit. So the things that you definitely want to do, and you could see them listed here, just kind of thrown out on the screen. But the website, you need to have information on a website for people to go to and reference. And you have to be thinking about it leading up to the event, all the information that they might be interested in before they purchase, or even leading up to it, to make it that great experience, right? So we're talking about trying to replicate that live experience as best as possible virtually. Well, one of the best things that you can do is try and over communicate, because you're missing that face-to-face. So the website should be informational about if it's sessions or lessons, and the information that people may need to have to get there. You also want to make sure that, especially for promoting it, you have proper tracking on the website so that you can learn and adapt from the analytics that you're listening to, as well as retargeting people. Retargeting is one of the best formats for paid advertising. So the example that I'll give is somebody comes to the website, your website, about an event, try and find out information about what's going on. They don't buy a ticket right away, or they don't register right away. So what happens after that when they go back to social media and they're on their Facebook feed? You can hit them with something else and retargeting to try and get them to come back to the website and register. And there's different types of things inside a campaign that you can test or run to try and get people back. Social media. So I mentioned social media in terms of retargeting, but it's also great for direct targeting in terms of creating awareness, right? You can choose to show certain ads to certain people, certain interests, certain titles across things like LinkedIn and Facebook, and that's great for targeting. The other thing you could do is build lookalike audience of people that have come to your real life events or have already been to events through the email addresses that you have for them. And that's a great way to think of, like, somebody that looks like this person to, social media giants, of course, may be more interested in coming than just somebody off the street. We talk about paid ads too. So this is paid ads. This is not just Google. You're paying to play on Facebook, Instagram, same thing, as well as LinkedIn and other social networks. But Google is also a good opportunity for that retargeting in terms of trying to get people back to the site, but also just for anybody that might be searching for what it is that you are promoting, to find those keywords and do keyword, targeting specific for Google Ads. The other thing I'd mention is video. I mean, I know, Ed probably could speak to this too, but video is a great way to communicate and explain what the experience might be like. It gives more of a feel than text does, right? So leveraging that video to communicate and tell the story about what people should expect, answer some of those key questions, and even do it over email. So we're telling a lot of people now, you've seen those whiteboard videos. Maybe you've seen me doing this, where you write out on the whiteboard and show it and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Here's why you should go. Here's what's interesting about it. And sending that over email, even better if it's personalized, trying to get in front of the people that you're really trying to get to the event. Especially for any internal types of events, that's great, because you're able to really try and reach the audience that already knows you, with the purposes and the reasons why they might want to come on a more human face-to-face level. Again, trying to replicate that live experience, try and create face-to-face even leading up to the event so that it feels a little more human to people. We talk about referrals. So asking people that you know, like, and trust to share the event, promote the event. You may take the people that have already been to an event of yours and ask them to help you promote it, or invite one or two others to come. And then word of mouth. I mean, just making sure that any of your content, your website, your information is very shareable and worthy of discussion, you know, giving some informational facts and keynotes or topics for the keynotes that will be able to get people to become engaged a little bit more. I also like one big kind of undertone around things, which is personalization. So if you guys have, let's say, a very high ticket price for your signature event, how much time is it worth of yours to try and personalize a message to somebody that you think might be worth reaching? And when I say personalizing a message, again, going back to those videos of saying, you know, hey, John, great, you know, I would love for you to come see this event, you know, register here. Here's all the benefits I think you would benefit from, and make it a little bit more personal. That little bit of time could go a long way for those big ticket items. So that's what I'd say about promoting. I mean, it sounds like we had one answer here in terms of word of mouth or social media was the best for Elizabeth in terms of promoting. And yeah, I think that's right on in terms of just making sure that you're creating something that's conversational for people to talk about leading up to the event.
Ben, you bring up a great point. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about video, but that personalized video is certainly a great idea because, again, if you're doing a fully pre-recorded program, while you're there, you can have the main people doing those short shout out videos, maybe not shout out, but invitation, you know, hi, Dr. So-and-so, we'd love to have you at our event. It might take a little bit more time on the shoot, but if it gets you a $20,000 donation or more, I mean, it's well worth it. So.
Absolutely.
So sorry. So I guess this is like the perfect segue into production. So there's a lot here, and I'll try and keep it very high level at this point. But for production and execution, for producing it, you really want to make it something that's entertaining, that people are going to want to come and watch or see or stay and watch once they start. If after 5 minutes of watching, there's nothing real exciting going on or, visually captivating that keeps people engaged, they're probably going to tune out, especially if there's Netflix or this or that, or their kids are in the background, asking them questions. Unless it's something that is engaging and entertaining, it's really hard to keep people's attention right now because there is so many other distractions in the world. Just as much as producing something that's entertaining, again, you want to do an engaging job there. So keep things interactive, have comment sections. I will preface this by saying they should be monitored. You would not believe how many internet trolls think that a college commencement ceremony is the perfect opportunity to write whatever they want. So we can do that for our clients. We have done that. But a lot of times our client has a team assembled that will kind of view things as they come in. And depending on the platform, they can actually approve it before it goes out. On certain platforms, the comment has to go up and then they'll take it down right away. So it really depends what platform you're using there. But then there's also the options, just like here, the live polling, Q&A, networking opportunities. People are craving that aspect of events, that social face-to-face interaction. While it might not be exactly the same, I know for me, when I've been at events and I see somebody on camera that I haven't seen in a while, particularly Elizabeth, this actually happened recently with a cooking demo. When I saw her, it was great. My face lit up. I think her face lit up when she saw me, but it's just one of those things, we haven't seen each other in person in a while, in many cases. So having some sort of networking, whether it's simply a chat or breakout rooms where people are on camera and talking, that really helps to at least make up for the fact that it's not an in-person event anymore. So she says it made her light up. So we'll see if she's speaking the truth or not. The other things that you want to do is you want to measure. You want to get the attendee data, understand the engagement rates, what are the view counts that you're getting, stuff that is just hard data that you can talk to the client about and understand, okay, this actually helped produce this many views or this amount of dollars for fundraising or this amount of sales. That's all super important because one of the things that we get asked a lot right now is like, what's the return? What are we going to see from this? And it's a complicated question because it really depends on what you're looking for, what you're trying to get out of it. But just like anything else, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So the planning and all is super important, but just as important as the planning and the production and the promoting and all of that, it's the measurement, making sure that you have clear numbers that you can look to as far as how it performed. Lastly, in the production and execution phase of things, you want to record it, whether it is already a fully recorded program or it's live or hybrid or whatnot. You still want to have a recording of that. And if it's even possible, in some cases, you can record it with the chat and comments and live polling. So that way people can watch it afterwards with all of that incorporated. But it's not always the case. So if you're putting it on Facebook or Facebook Live or YouTube Live or something a little bit more, simple compared to these various trade show platforms that do an amazing job, but not everybody needs. You want your people, the attendees, to be able to go back and watch it when they have the chance. Again, right now, there are so many distractions, so many things that are pulling at our attention. So having the opportunity that people can go back later on and watch the program and maybe see things that they didn't see the first time if they already watched it once, that's really important. One other aspect of that is with all of this, with virtual events, you can reach people everywhere across time zones, across continents. It's all important. So, our 12 o'clock live webinar here at, on the East Coast, it's going to be hard for somebody, in Europe to maybe watch it because they're already done for the day. So will they watch it or not? But having it recorded and being able to be consumed on their own time is super important. I know for one of our clients in London, it's super important that they can be able to see the stuff after the fact because they're not obviously on the same time zone as us.
Great. Thanks, Ed. All right, get ready. It's another chance to win another gift card. Remember, no Google cheating, people. All right. So the virtual events industry in June of 2020 was $78 billion. What would you say is the expected revenue by 2030? So in one decade, how much do you think it's going to actually increase? Price is Right rules.
We can't guess, right? We're not allowed.
No, you're not allowed
Okay.
to. You can, but you won't win.
You won't get the prize.
This is an interesting question because one thing that we've seen a lot of are people saying, oh, well, virtual is going to go away once the pandemic's gone. No, it's not. You have to understand that this is something that is going to be here for a while, and how do you actually adapt? So it's huge understanding the fact that it's not going anywhere.
Okay, so that's the wrong question, but you're close.
Thanks, Casey.
All right, we'll give it another the 15 seconds because they're starting to roll in like crazy now, but you're going to be pretty amazed at how much it's actually going to increase.
There's some close ones.
There are some close ones. All right. Casey's laughing at herself. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Answer. $774 billion by 2030. That is basically 10 times the amount that it is right now. So
there's no going back, people. There's no going back.
Buy stock in virtual. That's all I have to say. Stock in virtual. Okay. So yeah.
I'm just surprised that Price is Right, nobody guessed $1. I was expecting somebody to put that.
Well,
That
Kate
was
deserves a shout out.
I was
Kate,
gonna
you
say,
got it
Kate
right.
Wright got the 700 billion, so she's the closest.
Yes.
Congratulations,
Great
Kate.
job,
You
Kate.
will also get a gift card shortly to your email address. So thank you for playing, everybody. All right, moving on. Post event. What do we do after the event's over? I mean, we've planned it, we've promoted it, we've had people come, we actually produced the event, everything's great. And this is more post-live event, but it's also post-event in general. So right after the event itself, I would definitely say thanks. I mean, however you promoted the event and however people signed up, I would really look to follow up with each attendee and really build that relationship that you originally had with them. You could do things multiple ways, but you could do it like through email, you could do it through social. Maybe it's even a gift. Let's say they made a huge donation and you want to send them a gift. You know how you always see those commercials? If you sign up for like St. Jude's or I think it's the other one, we'll send you a blanket. So, you know, it's
Shriners.
just Shriners. Thank you. They're both the same. They're in the same channel. So yeah, if you do Shriners, they'll send you a blanket. So it's nice when people are recognized. And even if it is just a thank you in an email, it's also important to thank people that maybe have watched it after the fact. So don't just think it's those people that they're live, they came, they did it. That's great. But think about those people that are going to be doing it after the event actually took place, and continuing to maintain those relationships with them. Again, post it on social, post it on your website, go back to all those places where you originally promoted it again, and share it with the people where your audience is. Just share it exactly where they can experience it all over again. You want to share like photos or video clips. When people have a great experience, it's nice to relive it in a way. Think about a wedding. I mean, you go to a wedding, the wedding's over, but then the photos come later and, you know, everybody gets to share it again, whether it's on their social media or whether they're sending it out in thank you emails or thank you letters. So there's a lot of way there to take care of it. And by the way, the letter is not dead. Don't think that sending a letter is dead. You can still send it, you know, snail mail. It's still great to get something in your true mailbox and open it up. It says, thank you so much for your donation or thank you for just attending. It's nice to have. Measuring the data. I know Ed went over that a lot, but it's just truly, did you reach your goals? You know, have you gotten the number that you wanted to get registered? Have you gotten the one that's attended? Did you get the dollars that you wanted to raise? Did you reach that goal? Share that information. If you exceeded your goals, let's say, you know, I see it all the time that, you know, we raised X more percentage than we did last year, or X more dollars, or, you know, if it's a food drive, X more pounds, whatever it is, it's just a nice way to thank everybody and really share that data that you had reached your goals. And speaking of sharing, Ed.
Yeah. So great points. I think one of the things that nonprofits worry about right now are they seeing a decrease in donations overall? Because with everyone struggling, where can they make that up? And I think that's so important to be able to share, like, hey, our event actually outperformed last year's event. It makes people feel good, makes people feel super involved. So yeah, again, sharing the fact that that you're doing great stuff in a time where, you know, there's a lot going on in the world. So we want to have those feel good stories of, oh, we raised this much more or anything like that. To what you actually teed me up for, sharing. It's sharing, you know, snackable content, being able to take content from your event and make it into little bite-sized pieces that you can reuse. The other thing is when you're planning your event, you know, this starts all the way back at planning. If you're there and you're filming something and you have other needs for your business, or you want to create some content that will live past the event, not just slices of the event, certainly think about that. Film that while you're there. Film those, thank you very much, so-and-so for attending, even if you don't know the dollar amount ahead of time. You can do all of that ahead of time and create this trove, this library of content for after the show that you can share, follow up with, all of that good stuff.
Great, thanks. Once you have this content and you're putting it on your website and you're putting it on YouTube and you're putting it on social, always remember to optimize it. Optimization is a great way just to get additional eyeballs on what you have done. Maybe somebody that didn't even know the event was taking place, and they're able to tell, they search for something on YouTube, or they're searching for something just general in social media, and they happen to see it. Now, that doesn't mean you have to advertise it necessarily, but, make sure you're using video file names, the titles, any kind of meta descriptions. Go back to the basics when it comes to social media. Create that copy that speaks to your audience. Again, you want to see how they're searching and use those keywords that in a conversational manner, so that it kind of gets picked up by these bots and search engines that are out there. Adding subtitles, speaker information, and closed caption to your video, that's fantastic. A lot of people nowadays do not listen to video or audio that's in a recording. They'll read it. Whether
captions,
they might be at work. Maybe they don't have headphones. Maybe they like both, because sometimes, especially if you have a speaker or presenter and maybe they have a little bit of an accent, that really helps to kind of almost translate it in a way so that it's readable. Or maybe you want to put it in a different language, go for it. Yes.
Also, if I can jump in for 1 second, sure. If you are filming people with masks on, that creates a whole nother challenge, because people who might not necessarily be able to understand what that language might be or whatnot, especially people with hearing difficulties, they can't read lips either. So it's a mumbled, sound that's coming from the mask. They can't read the lips. So having those caption files are so important nowadays.
Great thought there. Yeah, I didn't even think of that, but yeah, with all the masks that are out there, it does make it a little bit difficult. We are all in separate rooms, so we don't need to wear masks right now. We're in separate houses. Create original, enticing thumbnail images for your videos. This is always great just to capture people's attention right off the bat. Make sure that they're engaging, make sure that they're speaking to, why they would want to share. We do have a offer, which I'm going to post in that channel, that talks about SEO content and a true love story, and how do you put the two together. If you want to download it, feel free to do it now. If not, know that we'll be sending it to you later. So just wanted to share something with you that kind of goes into those basics again as to, how you should be writing about it. And finally, we'll kick this off with Ed.
And we will go planning years of structure 30
Ed,
to 60.
Ed, you're coming in as a robot for me. Anybody else?
Same.
Yep, I thought it was me. Okay. Well, Jess, you take over for right now.
All right. So what's next for events? As you can see, the forecast for the industry, the $1 billion, $750 billion. Virtual events are not going away. So there's a lot of talk about these hybrid events and sort of what to expect, and how you can really maximize the use of both live events and, maybe with virtual aspects to it. So this graph just kind of shows you a little bit of the opportunities within each type of event, right? So obviously the networking opportunities you can't really compete with the in-person event for networking opportunities. However, repurposing content, that hybrid and virtual event is going to be much better in terms of, what you can offer people and what you can gain from it. Everybody knows content is king right now. And people talk a lot about evergreen content. So being able to incorporate that evergreen content into your event and then reuse it, whether it's via videos like we talked about, or using it on social or just on your website, optimizing it, and really, continuing the efforts from that content. So it doesn't go away. You can keep reusing it and reusing it. If you spend money on all of this tech and, working with great producers like Ed, really get the biggest bang for your buck and reuse it as many times as you can.
I think, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
So this is the perfect opportunity to talk about testing your tech, making sure that everything is good. I actually did test it, but my my AirPods only have about a battery life of about 45 minutes. So I had to quickly recharge them. So my apologies. But yes, everything that just said is very important. Again, I think it all just goes back to the planning. If you plan this out the right way, that you can get all kinds of other content out of what you're creating, it's so important. So having that content library is really important moving on post event.
Right. And also think about, if you look right in the middle, content and speakers, there's sort of, this is where things level off. And, companies used to have to spend a lot of money bringing speakers in, paying for their flights, paying for their hotel room, paying for their appearance. Whereas now that everybody is super comfortable with virtual, maybe you can bring in a really, a speaker who might be really expensive otherwise, but who, you might save a little bit of money on room and boarding because you can bring them in virtually. So that's super cool too, in terms of, those hybrid events and maybe taking the best aspects of your live and your virtual and bringing them together for a really cool event.
Exactly. One of the coolest things I've seen is the fact that people have celebrities popping into their conferences, whether it's live or through cameo appearances, stuff that you would have never even thought about before or even had the budget for prior to all of this. You can get some amazing speakers. Actually, in one of our virtual events, we highlighted Emmanuel Acho. And he spoke a lot about civil unrest and racial injustice and everything else going on right now. And he wasn't in the room. We were able to, to bring him in on a monitor, and it was still a roundtable discussion. And again, we didn't have to fly him in. We didn't have to lodge him anywhere. So one thing I would highly recommend is think about how you can differentiate your event from everyone else. Everyone's doing this right now. So can we get a band in that maybe we wouldn't have been able to afford, or a speaker that might be able to come in and, otherwise would have never been, available due to scheduling or money or anything else. So there's so much more that you can do with these events, even sponsorship. You can do more with the hybrid events, in terms of sponsorship there. So yeah, just getting all of this data, being able to work with it and pull it from the virtual events, as well as the in-person and hybrid, it's just so important. So
thanks, Ed. Thanks, Jess. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for participating. We are going to open this for question and answers right now. And if you want to put that in the chat, feel free. But in the meantime, one thing that came up and was really shocking, not too shocking, I should say, one thing that's really important for us to touch base on right now, Ed, is 75% of the people in the poll, so 3 out of 4 people that took the poll, realized that replicating the in-person experience is really the biggest challenge. What kind of advice can you give them to help replicate that in-person experience now that we're doing it virtually? I know you've said it throughout, but maybe you can just sum it up.
Sure. So again, there's different ways that you can have engagement, whether it's having that in-person via camera networking opportunity, or even just through chat. That's so important. Thinking about how you're going to entertain the people and keep them engaged. It's one of those things where we understand that that these types of events are different. They are different, but they're familiar. They're not quite the same as before, but you can keep them, formatted in a way that keeps within the tradition of, how you've done events in the past, but with that new twist to it. So I think that's certainly ways that you can do it. Rachel just posted about sponsorship, swag bags, boxes before and after the event. Perfect. That's a great option. Sending food, again, as long as it's food that can stay fresh and all of that, sending food ahead of time so that way people can eat together and have that kind of experience. It's really about creating an experience that that is trying to have that familiar feel, but that it's going to be a little bit different. So there's one other thing, one other aspect of that I would certainly recommend in terms of, pivoting to the virtual is, again, just keeping that engagement level really, really high any way that you can. So I think that is a perfect way to try and keep events that familiar, but not the same. aspect.
Great. Thanks. We have a couple of questions that we received prior to during our surveys when they registered. So how far before an event should we start planning for an event? Ed or Jess?
So, sorry, Jess.
I'll just throw in, I think it depends on the event, right? So if it's a smaller, maybe educational webinar, maybe you don't need as much time. For the larger events, I think best practice for live events, you want more time than not. So I think it definitely depends on the event, but I would say the more time, the better. Especially because you want to get those save the dates out. You want it to be on people's calendars. Your signature annual event, sometimes, that save the date comes out a few months after last year's event. So, and where you might not be promoting that event that's a year away on social just yet, you're still starting the planning. So, and Ed, I'll let you add to that.
Yeah, I was just going to say the most amount of time as possible. The more planning that you have, again, planning is going to prevent problems. What was the phrase?
Proper planning prevents poor performance.
There we go. So, and, it kind of just goes back to that, failing to plan is planning to fail. So having that amount of, time to plan ahead of time is so important. What we've seen on our pre-recorded events is, if we have a good lead time of 6 to 8 weeks, to actually plan it, get in, film it, and then turn it around, that's super important. So right now we're focusing a lot on spring events and early summer events.
And with that too, talk to your partners, talk to your production, your production team, talk to the venue or the caterer if you are going to be including food. Talk to your speakers, and I think the more discussions you have and the more time you have to plan, the more there is to think about, right? Because someone might bring up a suggestion. Ed might say, I'm going to need 6 to 8 weeks for this. So you're going to know you're going to need to get certain things in place before that.
Yeah, as well as the promoting. You want to leave enough time for promoting it and trying to bring people in. If you're going to run paid campaigns, the more time you have, the more you can optimize those campaigns for A/B testing and stuff like that around your ad campaigns. Actually, I didn't mention this, but we do have an offer here too as well for PPC and how to create impactful PPC campaigns around that promotion. But that stuff takes time. And as you're planning some of the aspects that you don't necessarily need to spend a ton of time doing in advance, you could be promoting alongside that and run those things in tandem. That information just gives you a lot more to optimize around. You could take some of the data that you get back from your campaigns and even modify and change what you're doing in terms of your programming to suit the need.
Exactly. Okay, I think, Ed, this one might be for you because this came into what kind of returns have you seen on some of these virtual events? Oh, now we can't hear him at all. They'll be right back. All right, we'll go to another question then while he's working that magic. Let's see. That's an Ed. Do you have any suggestions or examples of how to incorporate evergreen content into the larger game plan? Is that a Ben question?
I can just give you a scenario. Just think of, and I don't know if this answers the question directly, but just think of having somebody that comes in and is your session speaker, and they are the main event for speaking and teaching something. And then what they put out is something that's just so hugely valuable that you're able to take it and put it out online in video format, transcribed, and in blog format so that it continues to create value and bring people in. Now, again, there's rights. I'm not sure what the rights would be in terms of who owns that content for you to use it in the marketing, but that's an opportunity for you to take some information that's been brought at the live event and repurpose it, evergreen it so that it's optimized for SEO and could live on your website as well as in, maybe YouTube video and so on. I also think those snackable bites of information may not be evergreen forever, but they could, you could break up one talk into maybe 15 or 20 key points that came up that you're able to just, push out on social media and continue to just post over time.
Great. You back, Ed?
I'm hoping so.
You got it.
So what I'm realizing is it's all the AirPods. So I will be Amazon priming the some new AirPods, I guess, after this. So again, my apologies. So I think you had asked what kind of returns we've seen
Yeah,
in
I
some of
did.
the events. Yeah, so it's a great question. It's one of those things where it really depends on the event and depends on what you're getting out of it. Some people have seen, a simple return of just getting more people there, getting more people aware of their brand and what they offer. Something like this. We're not looking to make millions of dollars off of it. But then there are other events that do make millions of dollars off of it, particularly when we worked with Children's Hospital. We worked with them several years in the past on their walk run. And this year they actually outperformed all their other walk runs by $1.6 million. So that was their total for their virtual event. So that was very helpful to them to be able to see, okay, this is what we did. They had a lot of planning behind it. It didn't just happen by accident. There was a lot of planning that went on in terms of promoting, planning the shoots, planning exactly what the call to actions were going to be with it. But yeah, they executed an amazing plan on it and was able to see a direct return on it that outperformed other years. Another client of ours that we had seen a great ROI on was Washington's Crossing. Every year they do a reenactment of Washington and his troops crossing the Delaware River on Christmas Day. Usually brings out a few thousand people and a few hundred reenactors. So we actually filmed that in early December, just with the reenactors and with a smaller cast than usual. And it still premiered on Christmas Day, as it would have, just everybody watched from home. And they have seen an amazing amount of views, not just locally of people that would have been there, but also nationally, or also across the country and internationally. So I think one of their channels had something like 15,000 views for an event that, again, usually would get a few thousand people at it and some news coverage. So it's one of those things where having a better return on what you're doing, it means keeping all the shareholders, the stakeholders in the loop, talking with the client and really keeping them abreast of everything that you're doing to make the production and make the promotion and the planning and all the best that it can be.
Great. And I know that you had mentioned a big number there, but what type of budget should somebody be considering for like virtual versus in person?
Sure. So it's a great question. It depends on the type of event that you want, whether it's something like this, where it's a Zoom or webinar, Jam, or whatever other platform you're going to use, webinar, the cost of that is going to be considerably less than taking a 300 to 500 attendee gala and turning it virtual. It also depends on the length of the program. So we've seen things that have, been in the low tens and teens of thousands, all the way up, past six figures. So it's one of those things that really just depends on exactly what you're doing. Another aspect of it is, are you filming it all in one day, all in one shot? Is it being spread out across a couple weeks, across, a large geographical area, like going to different locations to film?
We get it.
You've been cut off.
On that note, I will just add here that, this all goes back to the planning too, is while you may be forecasting to spend a lot more money on your technical needs and your production aspect, there hopefully is going to be some trade-off, right? So, you might spend $10,000 to $20,000 on just the venue, just the space for a large event that's going to host 600 people. So maybe there's some trade-off there. Obviously, if you're doing, prepared food, there's going to be some cost for the food that you're sending, or the, beverage mixers that you might be sending. However, you're not going to have to pay for the service aspect of that, right? Because there's always going to be a staff cost with these large events. So there should be hopefully some leveling off as far as, maybe an increased spend in one area, but a decreased spend in another area so that you can really stick within a budget.
So I'm back now. Hopefully you don't lose me again. Again, I apologize, the AirPods, and I don't have a wired connection. But what I was trying to say is, although I'm not giving a absolute precise number, it's all variable on all of the different aspects of your production, and how much paid social you might be doing. And, like Jess had said before I got kicked off, like venue costs, if you still have any of that. So, again, it's variable, but the one thing that I would highly recommend is, whether it's us, whether it's creative, whether it's another agency or production company, talk with your vendors, understand exactly, let them understand exactly, what you have to work with, what you're trying to produce. And I think most are in a spot where they're trying to work with you to create the program that you want for the cost that that you have in mind.
Definitely. Events, just being from the industry, companies are hurting, the food and beverage companies, the venues, they're hurting. So any way they can still be a part of your event, they're going to want to take the steps to work with you and help you and make sure that it's a good event all around, because, everybody needs it right now. So definitely.
Well, thank you very much. I did mention there was a question. I don't know whether it was answered because it was a while back, but Rachel asked, is it Zoom versus webinar? And how do you decide sometime which platforms to use?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So Zoom does have webinar component to it as well. So I think if the question is really the difference between a group conversation versus, something like this where it's more a webinar format, it usually has to do, in my mind, with how much conversation is there going to be and how much management of that conversation can you realistically control. So, for example, in this format, having 15 or 20 people being able to talk to each other might not be the best for us to be able to communicate all the information that we have. So I think thinking of it that way is probably the best in terms of how many people do you want to be talking at one time and how much control of the conversation do you have. I have seen formats that I like for some combination of both, where it's kind of like a Zoom call with breakout groups and the networking happens through the breakout groups. So you still get that networking component, but most of the control is done through through the host or hostess that's managing the actual event. So that's something to consider as well. But it goes back to the programming. Think about the programming first. What are you trying to communicate? And then the platform should work with the programming the way you want to communicate it.
Great. Thanks, Ben. All right. Well, we would like to thank everybody for joining, and I do thank everybody for the participation. Again, gift card winners, you will get your gift card in the mail probably within the next few days. And have a great day. Stay safe, everybody. And if
stay
you need,
warm.
Yeah. Well, depending upon where you are, Ben, Florida. So just enjoy yourself, enjoy the day, and have a great time.
Thank you for
Thanks,
joining.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.